What's up, guys? You're here with CozierLobster. We're going to be doing a summary of "And the Hero Was Never Seen Again." I don't think I'll be doing this for all my reviews, but the story for this game was long and complicated, and I couldn't shove it in my review. I probably missed a few things in the summary, and I didn't include any info from the glossary entries, because if it's important enough to have it in the main story, they should have put it there in the first place. Well, with that, sit back and enjoy. The story starts off with our hero Astel delivering the final blow to the Demon King. Off to the side, we have two onlookers named William and Harry, commenting on that he beat the Demon King with no sweat off his back. When Astel meets back up with them, they decide to leave, but suddenly they are all teleported out to an open field, where William and Harry are confused on what just happened when they look over to find Astel no longer a man, but has become a woman. From there, we jump 6 months into the future, where she decides, rather than telling anybody that she was the hero that killed the Demon Lord, she decided to go into hiding and wait for her money to run out before getting a job. Which I find funny, because instead of trying to cure it, or maybe even use the two people to vouch for her, she decided to crawl into a hole and hide. Desperate for money, she decides to go to the guild, hoping to find an easy job when she bumps into William. He offers Astel a job to be a carrier, whose main job it is to hunt down ancient portal devices and reconnect them to the teleportation system using a magic key that he's developed that will light up when you get near a portal. Though she starts at level 1 and somehow doesn't have any of her skills that she used to beat the Demon Lord. William explains that the world is still a dangerous place, even if the monster lord is dead, and that he's hoping that connecting the world together and would make trading easier and more reliable. William introduces Astel to the rest of the carriers and teams her up with a woman named Emma, who is a demon. Side note, the only thing that is different between a human and a demon is that they have red eyes and more mana. The first area they decide to look for a portal was the forest right outside the city. Heading there, the key eventually goes off and they find a portal and activate it, which teleports them back underneath the city. And they proceed to go back to the guild and report what they have found. While the girls were out, William is visited by some trade company head. They try to threaten him to merge the companies together, but William refuses and the men leave, leaving the ominous statement saying he will regret his decision. That night, Emma is having a nightmare of her past where it seems people were hunting her down and her kind when she is suddenly woken up by a raid happening to the carrier dorm. She wakes up Astel and they begin to fight their way through the dorm. They eventually find the mastermind behind the operation, which was Ruta. She was introduced earlier during the carrier introduction section, but they didn't do anything with her, so that's why I didn't bring her up till now. Emma notices that Ruta is using a demon weapon, which is a magically powerful weapon. After the girls defeat her, they find out that demon weapons are made from demon children, and Emma is pissed that Ruta even knows how the sword is made in the first place and still uses it. Emma proceeds to knock Ruta out, but not before making her crap herself. In the aftermath, William apologizes to Emma because he didn't know that Ruta was a bad person, and that the police have her in custody. Next, the girls decide to go west of the city, where they eventually find another portal that they will use to teleport back to the city. I love that the girls just stumble upon these in the middle of nowhere. I thought we would have to delve the depths of dungeons, but nope, in the middle of nowhere. But once they get back to the city, Emma leaves Astel, telling her that she has something to do, so Astel begins to go back when she is stopped by some guards and is arrested for impersonating the legendary hero. Once she is arrested, Astel proceeds to get the guard to lower his guard, no pun intended, with her good looks and knocks him out to steal the key. Once she gets her stuff back, she escapes through the sewer, where she just happens to bump into Emma washing clothes for orphans. During this time, we cut to Ruta, wishing to get vengeance against Emma when she suddenly hears a voice saying, "I will grant your wish." She begins to feel intense burning pain as her body was slowly taken over by some unseen force. We jump back to the orphanage where Emma is explaining that she helps out here during her spare time when they hear a slamming on the door of the orphanage. When they check on the door, they find a set of thugs who want to strong-arm the orphanage to get more money out of them, but this isn't their first time dealing with Emma, so they decided to bring some backup, this being Johnny, who is just a guts-looking wannabe. Johnny calls Emma out for being a disgusting demon, and that his friends were eaten by demons, but Astel stands up for Emma and states that he doesn't know jack. But right before they start fighting, they feel the ground rumble and Johnny proceeds to jump into some falling debris to save a child. This was all caused by a monster called a true demon, which are creatures only focused on devouring and have no consciousness at all. Ooh. Which still confuses me on how you can mix these two up at all. It is revealed that this true demon is Ruta and she has come to kill Emma. Ruta proceeds to wipe the floor with the party when all hope is lost, We jump to Emma's perspective. As she has a flashback, we learn that when the Demon King first appeared, he hunted down demons and monsters first. Emma is still confused on why Ruta still remembers her, and she's thinking about sacrificing herself to save Astel and the others, but she suddenly hears the voice of the children from her past telling her to stand up and fight. She proceeds to reveal that she has her own demon blade and begins to fight with that. Once they defeat her, we jump to a mysterious person watching the fight on a roof in the distance. Just ignore the backdrop full of high-rises that don't match the medieval city setting out of Galetale. We jump back to the orphanage where we see Emma healing Johnny, and he apologizes for being a jackass from earlier. Astel meets up with Emma outside and asks her about the demon blades. She tells Astel that she is carrying the mana of children from her village inside of her, which Astel points out is quite dangerous. Astel also accidentally reveals that he was a hero here that killed the demon lord. The next day, Astel comes running back to their dorm with a cute monster she found outside, hoping to keep it. But Emma tells her that it probably has an owner due to it wearing a cute scarf. The girls drop the monster off at the front desk, hoping that they can help find the owner. They tell Astel that she is needed for a meeting with Police Commissioner Arlie. He is the one who most likely put the arrest warrant on Astel because he immediately has a hostile attitude towards Astel for some reason. Also, Astel seems to know this man but clams up. But he's mainly here because Astel broke out of jail. Let's just ignore the fact that she was almost sexually assaulted in jail, but Arlie mainly wants Astel and Emma to do an investigation on a university professor named Lane, due to their beliefs that he's been involved with a spree of minor crimes. They can't do the investigation themselves due to the campus hosting children from very influential people. He's willing to drop the charges on Astel if they pull this off. They are given a mana detector, which they will use to tell if the mana from the professor matches that from the crime scene. Once the meeting ends, the little monster they dropped off at the front desk is throwing a fit, and so the girls decide to take the monster along with them on the investigation. Once they get near the academy, they hear a commotion down a side alley where a girl is being assaulted by a hooded person, who proceeds to run to the sewer. Once they get the girl some help, they decide to chase after the creature, which leads them behind the university where the person got away inside. When they go inside, they immediately bump into another professor named Ricardo, but instead of questioning him about if they've seen a hooded person, they ask him where Professor Lane's office is at, which he points out is on the other side of campus. Once they leave Ricardo's room, they notice that their monster dog is missing, and after looking around campus a little bit, they meet up with another person who introduces themselves as Disaster, who strangely has the same color scheme as the monster dog. She claims to be here to help support the girls on their mission from Arlie. Of course, this wasn't mentioned by Arlie, but the girls decide to trust her because she at least knows about the mission. They meet up with Professor Lane under the guise of asking him questions about magic, to buy them some time so they can run the mana test, which the test shows that his mana does match. Ricardo happens to come in during their discussion and notice the mana detector. He gets really mad because the reason you would only have something like that would be to do an investigation on someone. Lane doesn't mind and proceeds to still help the girls with their question. After the meeting, the girls decide that Lane doesn't give the impression that he's the one behind all the crimes, so they decide to investigate a rumor about a hidden basement which they think is where the strange hooded person could be. They find the entrance to this basement, strangely enough, in Ricardo's office. Once they go down the labyrinth in the basement, they eventually find an underground laboratory. Here they find Ricardo's journal, which paints the whole picture. Ricardo has a daughter who is slowly transforming into a monster, and the only cure for this is the blood of a rare type of monster that can cure all wounds. Ricardo is buying this blood off a man named Govan, but this only stops the spread of the disease for a little bit and makes her crave blood, which explains all the minor incidences around town. They go to confront Ricardo about this, but they find his daughter rampaging at the university, so they subdue her, where Ricardo thanks them for not killing his daughter and locks her back up. Afterwards, we find out that his daughter just happens to have the same mana signature as Lane, which Ricardo was using to help buy more time for his daughter. They also find out that the monster blood that Ricardo has been using is from Disaster's mother. And the real reason that she is here is to save her mother. Disaster was the monster dog this whole time that was following the girls hoping to find her mom. Ricardo gives the girls a key to an underground casino where this is where he's been buying the blood from. After that, the girls make their way through the sewers and an underground parking garage, where they end up in a casino where they bump into Johnny again, acting as security. Emma convinced Johnny to help them out by lying to him about Disaster's mother dying and that they need the blood to save her, which just melts Johnny's masculine heart, so he decides to help them by going to the security room and disabling the cameras, so that the girls can get through the ventilation system and get to Govan. Once the girls make their way through, Govan is waiting for them, and proceeds to knock them out with a gas. Girls wake up behind bars, where Disaster transforms into a monster form again. To get past the bars, get the key to the cell. Once the girls make it out of the prison, they find Johnny knocked out on the floor, where they hear a massive explosion on the casino floor. And once they go check out what that was, they find Ricardo's daughter has broken into the casino looking for Disaster's mother to get some of that sweet, sweet blood. Govan is currently trying to run away with her mother on the casino floor, so the girls end up fighting, which just transforms her even further into a true demon. Once they defeat her, Disaster's mother, which we find out her name is Lila, Lila takes pity on the girl and steps forward to take the demon out of her and put it into herself, which saves Ricardo's daughter, but starts corrupting Lila instead. So Astel convinces Ima to freeze Lila with her magic until they can find a solution to save her. With Lila frozen, and Disaster decides the best way to save her mother is to stick with Astel and Ima and join the carriers as they explore the world to find portals, hoping to find a solution to save her mom. We next jump to the princess of this country, Charisse, who is having a conversation with William about the portals that the carriers have found. They discuss that the main purpose of these portals are not for teleporting objects, but for a planet defense mechanism, which most likely was used against the true demons, since true demons were the cause of the ancient civilization's collapse. Charisse also wants to have a meeting with Astel to confirm whether or not she is actually the hero, and because William can't keep his mouth shut, that's how she knows. We jump back to our group, where they are asked to explore an area around a dam for a portal, but they are told to return within 3 days because the princess wants to have a meeting with Astel. We also find out that Astel and Charisse had an arranged marriage back when he was a guy, but it seems that neither of them cared too much for each other, so Astel never told her what happened to him. On the way to the dam, they find that the road to it is blocked by an avalanche, but before heading back, they meet up with someone named the Monster Man. The Monster Man is a monster fanatic that lives near the dam, so the Disaster wants to talk with him. The two most important things from this conversation is that, one, the monsters and true demons are not the same thing. They are different species. And true demons are not considered to be alive. Disaster was worried that she could be a true demon, so she wanted to meet with him to confirm that she wouldn't transform into a true demon. The second fact is that monsters appeared 10,000 years ago after the Great Extinction Event, which wiped out all plant life, all animal life, and true demons off the planet. But humans didn't go extinct, and they don't know what caused this event. So even the grass and trees that we see in the game are monsters? Once the meeting ends, they just head back to the city, and they have their meeting with Charisse. Once the meeting starts, Charisse immediately tests if Astel is the hero by calling her out on being the hero, just to judge her reaction. Astel's reaction is just blatant surprise, which convinces the princess that she is the hero, because most people would just weasel their way into explaining that they are the hero. Astel just stood there stupefied by the question. This meeting is mainly about the current state of the kingdom and what is the true threat going forward. We learn that the kingdom's economic stagnation is not just due to the Demon King, but the king abolishing the class system altogether, giving the citizens the right to govern themselves. But they enacted this right when the Demon King showed up, which caused the nobles to hold on to their money. Even after the death of the Demon Lord, they are still holding on to their cash like it's their life. I don't understand how this causes a global economic collapse, or how the kingdom is abolishing the class system would affect this. Hell, this is just one city abolishing it. How does this affect everybody else in the world? Next, the conversation switches over to talking about true demons, and we learn that the ancient civilizations called them predatards, which is great because I'm really getting tired of calling them true demons. Predatards are called this by ancient civilizations, and they are hypothesized to be inorganic hive mind that have been asleep for over 10,000 years, and only recently woke up. Charisse wants Astel's team to be a hit squad to subdue any predatards that appear, since they have already taken down 2. The meeting ends with Charisse telling them that General Osman, who is from a neighboring country of Astelia, will be coming over, and the girls will be his bodyguard. Speaking of this general, we jump over to his perspective right when he's coming back onto dry land from a nuclear submarine loaded with warheads. This was developed by a man called Mulholland? I hope I'm saying that correct. Which looks like a generic evil genius ripped directly from a comic book. This scene mainly introduces Mulholland, who really wants to use his inventions to kill a lot of people. And he's just a weapon developer for Astelia. And there's another man also introduced called Mikhail, but we don't really learn much about him here. Osman is mainly disgusted by Mulhall's eagerness to use his new weapon on people. Osmond escort mission takes place on a giant airship which was developed by the other person that was with Astel when she beat the Demon Lord, Harry, who just looks like Dr. Jones. Harry's a famous world explorer and inventor. They just ripping this man directly out of Indiana Jones. But once they settle down on the ship and it has taken up, they head to the crew deck where Astel notices a black ball in the sky, which slowly sucks in the ship and spits them back out in an unknown location. They land for repairs and scout the area to find a set of ruins and predator-like beings within them. Chadis wants to explore the ruins and find out what's in them. Before they go, Disaster talks with Osmond about the possibility that they got sucked up in a black hole and are now in a different time period. Because you know what I thought the story was missing? Time travel. Great! When exploring the ruins, they eventually find a stone tablet that they can't read, but they get the emotion of sadness and anger from the message. They take the scribe of it, and the girls proceed to go past the tablet onto a courtyard where there appears to be a very large creature laying in the middle of it. They don't know if it's alive or dead or not, but Chadis notices from the opposite end of the courtyard that the walls are the very same walls that surround Galetown. But before they can explore anymore, Harry calls them up saying that the black hole has reappeared and that they need to go now. Once everyone makes it back to the ship and through the black hole, they confirm that they made it back to the present time period, but are suddenly assaulted by a group of predators. The ship has no defenses, so everyone needs to abandon ship and get to the lifeboats. While this is going on, a mysterious man appears who looks like a middle school power fantasy character, uses Astel's mana to teleport everyone to the lifeboats, but before the spell goes off, Arlie, who is also on this mission, decides to stay back to help guide the ship into a different location, so that the ship doesn't hit anything and it lands in the lake, which causes Astel to freak out and stay back with him. An explosion knocks both of them out for a bit, and when Astel wakes up, she notices that the ship has crashed into the lake, where she also finds Arlie, who can't move. So Astel, who takes Leg Day very seriously, proceeds to carry Arlie through the whole ship, but they can't find any lifeboats, so she proceeds to go down to the loading area of the ship and use the Connex box as a makeshift boat, and opens the cargo door and escapes through the Connex box. We jump back to the other party members asking William to go look for Astel by the dam, and they take off and search for them. Once they get to the dam, they notice that one of the doors is ajar, and they go inside to find both of them passed out. When Arlie is passed out, he gets us a flashback on why he disdains Astel so much. It turns out that Astel was given to him when he was a child and was raised by him and his wife, because they couldn't have a child together. Astel started off quiet and gradually warmed up to both of the pair over time, and they grew closer as a family. But one day, Astel lost his memories due to his high amount of mana. This mana would cause excess strain to his head, causing his memories to be wiped. Apparently, this happened right before they had custody of Astel too. Arlie and his wife were emotionally devastated by this. Astel, feeling guilty for causing them to feel so sad, clam backed up again and the family never recovered from it. Arlie also feels guilty about letting his son go to go fight the Demon Lord alone. When Arlie wakes up, he finds Astel in his room, and we get the real reason why Astel chose to hide, which is because she just didn't want to see her parents cry again. She thought it would be easier just to be dead and them to move on instead of just in case she loses her memories again. Arlie, finally realizing that she is his child, embraces Astel, and the two of them share a touching reunion. Then we cut to Osmond being led through a door that's by the pillar under the city. This leads him down to one of the only working facilities left in the ancient civilization, and Chadis wants to use this place to fight the Predators, but they don't know how the facility works, so they're hoping to have Osmond help them figure it out. Osmond agrees, but on one condition, that they go get his son from the Astalia Empire. So the girls are off to go grab Osmond's son. They'll be taking the train to the Empire, but on their way there, this train suddenly stops due to a fire on the tracks ahead. They need to pick up Osmond's son at a designated time, so when they hear that there's an alternate path through the desert, they decide to take that instead. While going through the desert, they bump into a city that has popped up there recently, made by Gova, the guy back at the casino arc, and he won't let them into the city due to his suspicions that they're just trying to arrest him and get him in jail again. So the girls decide to ignore him and just go deeper into the desert until they meet up with the kid. But right before they meet up with the kid, the portal key activates, which we haven't seen activate for quite some time, which just shows that there's a portal nearby that they could use to get back to the city faster than trying to take the train back. But once they get there, it turns out it was a trap set by Mulholland. This is where the plot goes completely off the rails, because Mulholland reveals that Astalia is now declaring war on Grandtail, and he plans on capturing Astel. Also appears that he knows that she's the hero. At this point, I'm not surprised anymore. I'm pretty sure everybody knows. Mulholland leaves it to his men to capture them, but the kid's butler decides to trade his life to buy some time for the girls to make it to the portal. They let the kid go in first, then follow in afterwards, but it seems that the soldiers destroy the portal, causing them to fall freely through space and time until they pop out in some type of cave. Ima seems to notice where they're at and runs ahead of the others, and they follow after her. As they go through the cave, they find ruins of a village that was once here, and no one left around. They catch back up with Ima on a clearing where she states that this was once the village that she lived in when she was younger. Ima explains that the village was destroyed by some demon hunters back in the day, and she thinks that they're back in their own timeline because the souls of the children inside her said so. They decide to keep going through the cave until they see Astel soldiers raiding the abandoned village. They take this opportunity to knock some of the soldiers out and wear their uniforms to catch a ride back to Astel, because it would take over a week to walk back to Grand Tail on foot. They also find out that they are looting the bones of some of the demons here. We jump perspectives to our one-armed mystery man to find out that his name is Menace. God, that is so lame. But it turns out that he's actually Astel from a different timeline where he didn't beat the Monster Lord because he was too afraid to use his powers and lose his memories again, so his world got destroyed. We then jump back to the girls in the steampunk aesthetic city of Estalia, where we find out they are 3 days in the past from the start of the war. Since the atmosphere is really tense, they decide not to go back by train due to not having any identification. As they go around asking for help, they eventually hear rumors of a guy that can get them out of the city who lives in the slums. When they meet up with him, it turns out to be Menace, who is confused on how they got here, and right before Astel can question him, a purple wall separates them. He completely disappeared, and the girls completely forget about him like he never existed. When the girls leave the room, they find a barmaid being hit on and they stand up for her. The barkeep asks them to spend the night because they stood up for his barmaid, but it turns out that he only did this because his reputation would take a hit and he wanted to turn the girls into the police. So the barmaid helps them escape into the sewers. When they make it out of the sewers, though, they happen to find an airplane in the scrapyard that is somehow completely functional. This airplane belonged to Harry, and it was used to take Astel to beat the Demon Lord. The girls negotiate the owner to give them the plane, and they take off the Grand Tail. And while they're in mid-flight, a nuke takes out the city and 1.8 million people die. And we just cut to them lying on the ground. Next we see Menace come up out of nowhere and tell Astel that he only has one more chance to fix everything, and tells her that they need Disaster's mother to control Aegis, whatever that means. He proceeds to send her back in time when she was back on the train. Astel's the only one of the three that remembers what happens, and she proceeds to tell Ima and Disaster what's going to happen in 3 days. The other two are suspicious until Astel tells them that the train is going to stop, and when it does, the girls choose to believe her and decide to take all the people from the train to the desert town that Gova set up. This time, they beg for Govar's help, and he's willing to listen to them, but thanks to Johnny and them giving up information about the portals, Gova is willing to help them by giving the people from the train a place to stay and allowing them to get a message to Grand Tail. Next, they decide to go rescue Osmond's kid. Since they know it's going to be a trap, they prepare some smoke bombs and use those to sneak in and grab both the kid and the butler and retreat back to Gova City. Gova gives them a helicopter to fly back to Grand Tail, and once they get back, the girls are taken past the door where the portal has been taking them and meet up with the rest of the cast. Astel tells them everything that she's learned from the future, and Chadius reveals that the underground facility is called Aegis and is an anti-predator facility. Chadius reveals that they were able to translate the stone tablet message from when they went to the future, but they kick out Ima and Disaster before revealing the message to Astel. They think she was the one who wrote the message in the future, which revealed that Astel knows how to control Aegis. Since Astel doesn't want to hurt her best friend, but knows that she wouldn't leave a message like that if there was no other option, Astel gives in and tells them that Disaster's mother is the key to controlling Aegis. With this knowledge, Chadius takes her team and starts hooking up Disaster's mom, but Disaster tries to interfere, but Ima tells her that there would be no way to save her mother due to the damage from freezing her, and there would be no way to take out the Predator without having another host to accept it. Lila calls out to her from within her Icer's shell to tell her that she's happy that she's made friends, and that she was worried that if she did die, she would be alone, but now she is truly proud of her daughter. And with these words, Disaster gives in and gives him the okay to use her mother. Right on time, too, because there's a nuke on the way from Estadia. Once they hook her up, the whole country of Grand Tail is covered by a force field that destroys the nuke and saves everyone. Astel and Ima spend the rest of the day comforting Disaster over the loss of her mother. We jump over to Mulhan, who is pissed because his precious nuke got destroyed, so he picks up a syringe and injects himself with it. When we cut back to the facility beginning to settle down, we now see the facility under control of Lila's consciousness, and so the robots around the facility begin setting up flowers and taking care of the refugees. When the ground begins to shake, suddenly, Chadis tells the girls that it's not from an earthquake, but something coming towards the facility fast. Lila communicates to Disaster that they need to get to the central plant deeper into the facility, so the girls start working their way down. Once they get there, Emma collapses due to her body finally feeling the fatigue of holding all those souls of the children. Lila tells them to take her body and put it into a pod, but that's when the ground shakes again and Astel runs off, telling Disaster that she'll buy them some time. Once she runs out and yells, which somehow gets the creature's attention, we find out that the creature is actually Mulholm, who completely transformed into a Predator. He's come here to destroy the facility for getting in his way for destroying his precious nukes. He reveals that he was also the one that created the original Demon King and didn't expect Astel to defeat it. Before he can attack, though, a new sword lands by Astel's feet, made from the demon souls that Emma has been carrying along with her this whole time. Emma and Disaster show up to help her with their own demon blades, and on top of that, Lila atomizes a new suit onto all the girls, giving them a power suit, which they proceed to beat the crap out of Mulholm. Once the fight ends, we cut to Mikhail, who appeared a couple times in the background, but he's the leader of Astelia, and is happy to see that Astel could change the future, and he starts up his plan. After the girls get back, they find a giant rift has cut the planet in half, and Disaster can no longer communicate with her mother. We jump 10,000 years into the past, where we see Mikhail. Apparently he was originally from the civilization, and we are also introduced to a woman named Artemis, who strangely looks like Astel. Anyways, these two are part of a space fleet where they are fighting a predator army, but are not winning. Mikhail is badly hurt, so Artemis takes him and locks him in her sleeping pod, and sacrifices her own life to save him. We jump back to the present to when our team is contacted by a recording of Artemis from over 10,000 years ago, where she knows exactly what is going on and proceeds to tell them that she is the creator of Aegis. She tells them that her memories returned a little bit too late, whatever that means, but she proceeds to tell them that Mikhail's main goal is to rewind the whole world 10,000 years ago, because one person going back in time isn't enough, so we have to send the whole goddamn planet back apparently. How this fixes anything is beyond me. We also find out the Predators are aliens from outer space, but their origins are still unknown. The message ends by asking them to stop Mikhail, because he's not a bad person. After the message ends, the party is contacted by Harry, who says he's found a spaceship in the basement. It just so happens to work, and it also has a force field that can fly through the rift. Harry also just knows how to pilot it, a super advanced spaceship. So the party takes it and gets past the wall, to find an Elden Ring tree being sucked up into a black hole. What the hell? So the team heads there thinking that it's Mikhail's base. Once they land there, there is a wall blocking the main path, so the girls go around to defeat two different gatekeepers, and once they're defeated, it allows them to pass through, but nobody else. So Harry and William wish them the best and head back to the ship. Once they get to the core of the tree, they confront Mikhail, and Mikhail tells them that he was the one that made the black hole that sucked them back in Chapter 5. It was an experiment to see how time travel works, and he was just showing them the inevitable future if they fight against the Predators. Mikhail's main goal is to rewind time, just to postpone the inevitable future and hope that people would just keep rewinding the planet every 10,000 years, I guess. But the moment Astel tells him about Artemis, Mikhail gets very angry hearing that come from the girls, and he hears a voice telling him it will grant his wish. So Mikhail turns into a true demon, and the fight begins. Once the fight ends, Mikhail is laying on the floor, moments away from death, when Astel goes and sits next to him, and I think the spirit of Artemis takes over her, and tells Mikhail that they can move on together, which closes the curtain on this 10,000-year-old romance. And hold your horses, because we're not done with the story yet. We jump a year into the future where Disaster has become Osmond's assistant and teaches classes about the future threat of Predators, and Emma has become a teacher at the Magic Academy. And what is Astel doing? What she does best. Nothing! But a door suddenly appears in Astel's room, and she decides to go through it for whatever reason. The door disappears when she goes through. Emma and Disaster, not getting a good feeling, decide to go check up on her, but when they get to her room, they have no recollection on why they are there, or any memories of Astel until they look at a picture next to the bed of the main cast. They get the feeling that something's missing, or someone, and then they eventually realize that they have completely forgot about Astel. And when they look into it, nobody remembers who she was. Right when Emma's about to run out, Astel walks through the front door acting like nothing just happened. But Disaster doesn't believe that it's the real Astel and begins to question her. But right before she answers, Menace appears, which causes Astel in the room to fade away. Menace tells them that the Astel that just disappeared was a fake, and that he was revived because the other Astel is no longer in this world. Menace tells them that he is an Astel from another timeline, a timeline where he didn't become a girl. He tells them that they need to go back 1.5 years when they defeated the Demon King, because that is where this all began, and where they will most likely find Astel. Once Menace takes them back in time, we find out that when Menace's world was destroyed due to his mistake, that he made a wish to the voice to have the ability to travel through time, which is interesting because it didn't corrupt him like it usually does other people. Menace is helping them out to help atone, because once Astel gets back, he will most likely disappear again. When they finally make it to the Demon King, they see Astel swing the final blow, when reality stops and breaks, leaving Disaster and Ima alone, wandering in the dark until they find Astel, who is also confused on why she is here. They suddenly hear a voice calling out to them, and telling them that he's taking them back to his world. Once they make it out, an old man calls out to them, and he explains that this world is called Eden, a completely virtual world. They come from a planet called Earth, where they have developed the technology enough to upload themselves into a virtual world, where everything is apparently a Japanese aesthetic. He explains that they have been watching their planet for a while now and took great interest in it. Because of this interest, they have stepped in a few times to help them out. They are the reason that the Predators disappeared 10,000 years ago. They made monsters to give humanity resources. Apparently, the reason magic was developed is due to people eating the monsters. Next, the old man explains that they stopped time in their world due to this thing called the Great Filter. This is the entity that's been creating all the Predators, and is the voice that keeps trying to grant people's wishes. Not wanting any more people to turn into these things, the people thought pausing time in their world would be the best. But Ima and Disaster interject, saying that they would rather die with their loved ones unpaused rather than be frozen in time for all eternity. Astel, feeling motivated by her friends, asks the old man where the Great Filter is at so she can kick its ass. The old man says it's a long shot, but they notice that the filter has grown a personality, unlike the creatures it creates, so they might be able to negotiate with it. With this in mind, the old man opens the path to the Great Filter, which is a subway tunnel. So once they make it to the end of the line, no pun intended, it cuts to Disaster's past, where she is living with her mother, and we find out during this sequence that Disaster's father is dead, which is never mentioned until now, so him being brought up a few times throughout the story, it's kind of nice to know how he ended up. This dreamlike state takes place right before Lilia gets captured by the hunters, who are currently burning down the village to smoke her out. Disaster tells her mother not to go, but Lilia tells her that she has to go because it's the right thing to do. Next, we cut over to Ima's past, where she is living within the slums of Astalia, most likely after the raid on her village. We find out that she had a younger sister that made it out with her, but their lifestyle that they're living here is awful, and they are barely getting by, until one day she snaps at her sister, who shortly dies from illness afterwards. Then Nuta appears all the way back from chapter 2, reminding Ima that she made an oath to keep living and carrying the pain that others sacrificed for her. After both of these scenes, we jump back to Astel, who is meeting with the Great Filter, who turns out to be Astel the hero? Once Ima and Disaster catch up with Astel, the Great Filter reveals that the female Astel is actually the Great Filter. When Astel defeated the Demon Lord, he wished to be done with the world, and the Great Filter wished to be loved by everyone in the world. Which is why it took on the appearance of a girl and has a completely different personality compared to him. As he watched her, he began to feel jealous because she was able to get everything that he wanted, so that's why he tried to eliminate her and take over as a fake. But Ima and Disaster stand up for Astel, saying that even if she is a fake, she is the one that they travel with the whole time, and to them, she is the real Astel. The girls get their weapons ready and start the fight, but as it drags on, they know that they can't beat him without some sort of help. And this is when a third party out of nowhere takes the power of the sun and shoots the girls with energy. Lila proceeds to transform both Disaster and Ima into Gundam suits and attach them to Astel, making a whole new power suit, which they proceed to beat the crap out of the hero. Once the fight ends, the hero calls Astel over for one more conversation. We find out that only half the things that he said were true. He was the hero who was just tired and just wanted to give up, but he realized too late that he gave up too much to gain power. Now everyone knows Astel more than him, and there's no place for him to go. But Astel tells him that there is a place for him to go. That is when Menace shows up, and Astel asks him to take the hero back 10,000 years into the past, because she wants the hero to become Artemis and develop Aegis. So the hero agrees and follows Menace back into the past, and for the last time we jump 1 year into the future, where Ima is the professor of the Magic Academy, Disaster still gets teased by her mother, and Astel has something to do, which is explore the cosmos. And that is the end. Thank God.